Thank you everybody for joining us today for our industry update. As always, some housekeeping notes to please make sure to mute your lines, address questions to the chat to everyone, and try not to email Melissa and John, and just put them in the chat so that everybody can see the questions. This might be a long webinar today, so please hold on till the end for questions, and John and Melissa will address them then. John, I'm putting this in your trusted hands.
Thank you, Hope, and thanks to all of you for being here. I think Hope meant to say hold on to your seats because it's going to be quite a ride today. I really believe it will be. As a reminder, this webinar is designed for the benefit of our restaurant, hotel, travel, and tourism and other partners of PRLA, and is off the record. It's not designed for the press. We entertain any and all press calls and interviews, but this is not that venue. So if you're with the press, please disconnect. Also want to mention that this webinar is sponsored by NEF. NEF uses integrated marketing strategies to tell your story and expand your brand. PRLA partnered with NEF to bring branding and website solutions to the Hospitality Assistance Response of Pennsylvania, HARP, which provides aid to displaced hospitality workers. Along with branding and website solutions, NEF delivers advertising, media buying, social media, public relations, photography, and videography services to their clients. Check out visit nef.knows.com. So it's neffknows.com today to learn more about NEF and their great support of our industry. Melissa's going to be a little bit late today, and so I'm going to attempt to fill in while she gets here. And the reason for that is because this is a great day for the restaurant and venue industry with the passage yesterday, which I'm sure you're aware of House Bill 2513 by the Senate. Melissa's going to talk about this in greater detail later, so I don't want to steal her thunder. And she certainly deserves the thunder because she quarterbacked a phenomenal legislative win with 2513, which had an overwhelming support of 43-6 in the Senate, which means in addition to all Republican, 14 Democrats voted for 2513. What happened is because of the momentum of 2513 in the Senate, the House decided to take it up on a concurrence vote today, rather than originally they would have taken it up next week when they returned. They returned early this week for other business that Melissa's going to talk about later. So they're taking up a concurrence vote on 2513 today. So Melissa's in the process of putting together the contact list. We're going to ask all of you, as soon as you get off the call, to reach out to your House representatives in PA House to let them know how important this legislation is to the industry. And again, Melissa will talk more about this later, but even though there were some hiccups and some potential derailment of this legislation along the way, in particular, Melissa, along with the PRLA Government Affairs Committee, the Alcohol Service Committee, the Lodging and Tourism Committee, and the PRLA officers orchestrated a phenomenal win for our industry yesterday. On a federal level, obviously the Supreme Court pick is taking most of the oxygen out of the room with the sad passing of Justice Ginsburg, and this is something that you're hearing a lot about now, so it's distracting a lot of other issues. I'm going to let Melissa talk more about that when she gets on and slide into the next slide so we can keep on moving until she has an opportunity to finish the work that she's doing right now. The reason why the House is back is to attempt a veto override on House Bill 2787, which is known as the School Sports Bill. It essentially allows parents to be able to watch secondary school sports that their kids are playing in. That was in part of the mitigation efforts. That's not allowed. The school sports bill allows for that. Governor Wolf vetoed that on Monday, and today there should be an override vote in the House, which is why they reconvened early this week. And so consequently, they're also going to take up, as I already mentioned, the House Bill 2513 that passed the Senate handily yesterday, 43-6. And there's a couple of other bills that we're still working on, which is House Bill 2615, which is the $250 million grant program, which came out of the House committee with a unanimous vote. And then House Bill 2832, which used to be the events bill, Representative Dowling, that would bring events back to 50% capacity. And it was, events were rolled into 2513. So the key components of 2513, as you may recall, is it brings restaurants back to a 50% capacity based on fire code. It allows for bar seating again, for service at bar seating, and it removes the meal requirement so that you don't have to buy a meal in order to get a drink, a glass of wine, or a beer. And it also allows for expansion of premises for licensees to non-contiguous outside areas. Lastly, it allows events, private events, such as banquets, catering, hotel banquets, private meeting rooms in restaurants, catering venues, to be able to operate at 50% of fire code capacity inside. So that was the original Dowling bill, House Bill 2832. Since that was rolled into 2513, 2832 was repositioned to include sporting events and performing arts venues at 50%. It also was voted out of committee. It was not a bipartisan vote like we've got on 2513. It was more of a partisan vote, but it was voted out of committee. So that will be working as well. Melissa will probably have more information on that when she comes on too, but I'll at least get the overview of that done. There is one more roundtable scheduled. It's in the Midwestern region, and that's on Monday, the 28th. And originally the House was scheduled to take up the Senate or the House Bill 2513 once the Senate passed it, assuming they passed it, which they did, on concurrence next week when they return. Because they returned early and they wanted to deal with it today, this regional roundtable may seem like it's not necessary. It's very necessary because there's a few things that are going to be happening. One is we have a number of other very important bills that we're working on for the industry that we need to garner support for. And the other is that the governor's press office already announced last night that they would veto 2513. I guess they're assuming it's going to get through the House on concurrence, which we're assuming too, but we've still got to work it hard today. And so consequently, we need to gather support to potentially override that veto as well. So this regional roundtable that's scheduled for Monday, the 28th at 2 p.m. is just as important as it always was, even if the House acts on 2513 today, as we expect they will. This is a map that shows the different chapters, including the Midwestern one, which is number 11 on there. And that's the one that we'll be holding on Monday. We have pretty good participation already from PRLA members and friends, but we definitely have more space, and we have great turnout from legislators as of now. Okay.
John, do you want me to save you now?
You're right where I'm getting really deep now. I think you know what I did thus far, so at least I got some of it covered for you. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, and I'm not done the contact information, but I will get that out immediately after the webinar. So check your emails for that. Can we go back to the first slide, and I'll breeze through with a little bit more fluff from John. As John mentioned, with the death of RBG, that is the talk of the town in terms of the Senate, and that's pretty much derailed all other negotiations. Even an effort to pass a bipartisan funding bill, which needs to be done within the next few weeks, has actually pretty much been derailed as well. So with that being said, you probably haven't heard boo about refunding of the P3 or the next CARES recovery bill. And as each day goes past and each party gets more partisan, it does hurt our efforts to get that done. So I do think if anything gets done, it will be a second round of P3. I'm not even going to give that 100% odds right now, just because of all of the conversations and the fighting and the partisanship that's happening in DC right now, which is not what I know you all want to hear, but that is really where we are, at least this week. And the hope is as people think that they are coming up for re-election in a few weeks, that they will start engaging and start realizing that we are the second largest industry in the country, and restaurants and hospitality especially need some additional help. So right now, less odds than I think I would have said last week in terms of getting something done. And that really is because of the battles, unfortunately, that are happening within the Senate in terms of Trump nominating another justice for the Supreme Court and ahead of the election. So not the best news on the federal level. Please stay tuned, because if we see a window of opportunity, you will get outreach from our national associations and PRLA, of course, to activate. And I think, like I said, we're going to end up with a P3 is where we hope. I think another 8 weeks of funding is not ideal, but it's better than no funding. So please stay tuned for that. Next slide. As John mentioned, it's been a rough, interesting week. So the Senate obviously moved 2513, which Sean discussed, and I'll give some more background to. And the House announced yesterday, literally as the Senate was voting on our 2513, that they were scheduling session for this veto override. And I've talked to you about this before. House Bill 2787 is our temperature check of, are there enough Democrats that will put up the vote to override the governor on the school sports bill? And I don't know the answer to that. Quite honestly, I think we're seeing Democrats peel off. I've talked to a few today that said that they voted for sports, but they probably won't vote for the override, but they said our bill is different in their mind as well. So that's happening today. I had reached out to leadership in the House last night and said, hey, if you want to run our bill, that'd be cool. Just let me know so I can get my members activated. And they replied and said, we just want to do the veto override. That's all we're planning to come back and do, which was disappointing. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, well, we'll do it next week. At which point at 9:30 this morning, I got an email from leadership saying, surprise, we are going to run 2513 today, which is so stressful, but also awesome, because if we get this done, if we get a strong support, we just shaved 6 days off of our timeline in terms of getting this bill to the governor if he's going to veto it and showing strong support. So this bumps up our timeline significantly in terms of putting pressure on the governor to get you all reopened. So 2787 is going to go today. Our bill, House Bill 2513, will move today. You can look up, and we'll put a link on here, how you can contact your legislators. So you don't need to wait for my spreadsheet. My spreadsheet is what has the email addresses in it, which literally I have to copy and paste. And I had about 130 done before this all happened, but we have 203 members of the House. So I am at number 193. So within 10 minutes of this webinar being over, we will have that list up on our website, which I know Steph or someone will put the link on so you can access that contact information. Yesterday, in terms of 2513, which John mentioned, I can't thank you all enough, and I plan on thanking you even more regarding the calls and the outreach you're going to be doing today. We had some interesting items pop up. I was in the Capitol on Monday when the bill was supposed to run, talking to Democrats, because that's who I've asked you to focus. And I got a phone call saying, guess what? The Republicans have concerns with the bill. And quite frankly, they were concerns in terms of they wanted it to go further. They want you all at 100%. They don't think what we've been going through is fair, and we all agree. But also, if we do so much to the bill that we lose that Democratic support, we don't move the governor. So on Monday, I was, before that kind of hiccup happened, people were telling me they thought we had 38, 39 votes in the Senate. And on Monday, I was feeling like super positive. I was like, I think we have 40. I mean, no one believed me, but it was just amazing yesterday when they did that roll call vote and it passed 43-6. We needed 36 to be what we call veto proof. We got 43. And if you ask anybody in the Capitol, I'm going to tell you first, I was in the gallery crying because it was that awesome to just see what happened when you all reached out and to see the votes that I didn't think we had that were with us. So thank you again for everything you did for 2513. And thank you again for all of the calls and emails you're going to send when this webinar is over, so we continue to have that momentum for that House vote today. Quick reminder of what is in 2513, minimum requirement of 50%. At no point can an operation be forced to operate below 50% capacity. Still allows for social distancing and barriers to be used. Allows for bar seating. Bar seating is back on all fronts in 2513. Eliminates the meal requirement that is currently in place, that you're going to get COVID if you don't get chicken wings with your beer. It also brings events back to 50%, which we're going to talk about the lawsuit. Don't ask me lawsuit questions until I get there. Does all of those things. The one thing the bill doesn't do, and don't yell at me, it does not change that 11 p.m. rule. And we were going to. I drafted an amendment to do so. The concern is that by doing that, we might lose a few Democrats who probably still would have been veto proof, but we wouldn't have had 43. So we are going to address that 11 p.m. last call, midnight closure in legislation. We are going to move that. There's a commitment from the House and the Senate to do so. But for this bill right now, we just thought we need to get it over to the House. We need to get it to the governor, and we need as many Democrats to vote for it as possible. And so that's where we ended up on that in terms of not running the bill with the 11 p.m. amendment. So don't get upset with me. I promise we're going to do it. But that's kind of where we are on that. Let me see. The no votes in the Senate. You see them, feel free to call them. Some of them are repetitive. Senator Haywood and Senator Hughes voted, and Street voted against the bill in appropriations, so we weren't surprised. I was a little surprised at Senator Farnese, considering the amount of you that are in his district in Philadelphia. So that surprised me. Senator Leach and Senator Muth, Southeast, I don't understand the reasoning there, but that's where we were. But we're moving past that, and you're all going to make calls today in terms of moving the bill in the House today. House Bill 2615, another awesome example of our roundtables being effective. This was a bill that came out of House Commerce. It's that $250 million grant program that goes to entities in the restaurant industry as of right now. And that bill was part of what was a very partisan committee meeting. There were a bunch of bills that were considered. There were a bunch of bills that went on party line, or there were only one or two Democrats put up the vote for, but they got to this bill. And while there were amendments that all failed party line, this bill, House Bill 2615, came out unanimously from committee in a committee meeting that was partisan the whole way through. So again, there is that recognition within the House and the Senate that we need help. We need them to help us, and they're putting up the votes to do so. There are other grant programs that are being bandied about. So 2615 is out there. There are other items. There's some talk in the Senate of doing what ideally would be a holistic hospitality and tourism grant program that we're still working on language for and legislation for. So a bill that would help restaurants, hotels, destination marketing organizations, and tourism attractions, and doing one giant grant program to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars for that. So that is part of the ongoing conversations that we're having right now, that hopefully once we send a veto-proof bill from the House to the governor after today, we'll be refocusing and starting to move those pieces of legislation, because that CARES Act money has to be spent by December 31st. So they need to start spending that $1 billion that's kind of sitting in the bank in terms of CARES Act funding. 2832, John touched upon. It's just, I know I'm a legislative nerd, so bear with me. It's just kind of cool because they took 2832, which initially was our private event bill, and because we incorporated that language in 2513, they changed it to sporting events and outdoor events, stadiums, even indoor performing arts facilities. And that didn't come out, as John said, that didn't come out with unanimous support, but more than one Democrat said if it was the underlying bill of private events that we had, they would have voted for it. So again, it is showing all of us that your outreach and your interaction is really making a difference here. So I know John talked about the roundtable. As he mentioned, even if we get a vote in the House today, there's a whole slew of things that we need to get you through this crisis. So if you are in that Midwestern region, please plan to join that roundtable. And then, I don't know, is there anything else we need to discuss today? I'm not sure if there's any other reason why 249 people would be on this webinar today. It's so weird. I feel so loved. And again, every week I say, this week it has so much going on. Can I call out sick? And every week it gets more. Gray is still the name of the game, but I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you who I talked to, and I'm going to tell you what I think you can do, and I can tell you what's keeping me up at night. Last week, the governor said he was going to file a stay regarding the decision that was made on Monday. I am going to review what that decision entailed again. Actually, I'll probably do it now because I know I had some questions. There continues to be confusion on the decision that was made last week by Judge Stickman. And to clarify this, the only items that he ruled unconstitutional in his decision was you can't have people stay at home. You can't do another stay-at-home order, which currently is not in effect anymore anyway. You can't unilaterally shut down businesses. So you can mitigate, you can say 25%. You cannot say you can't operate as a business. So he basically said that DCED waiver program was unconstitutional. And 3, he stated that the event capacities of 25 indoor, 250 outdoor were unconstitutional. Those are the only things he ruled on. So everything that is annoying you right now, your bar seating ban, the 11 p.m. rule, the meal requirement, that he didn't touch any of that. All of that is still in place. All of that is not affected by his order. The only thing for the purposes of all of your operations is that 25 people indoor, 250 outdoor. So again, those are the only things that this order changed. So what happened is the state applied for a stay. I told you last week, I'm so popular today. I told you last week I thought it would be granted, and quite honestly, I'm surprised it wasn't. I think there was a lot of surprise. It's good for all of you that it wasn't granted. But of course, yesterday, Judge Stickman did not grant a stay. So what does this mean to all of you right now? If you are in a county that has its own health department and they decide to keep the current mitigation standards or other mitigation standards, I'm looking at you, Philadelphia, Allegheny, at minimum. Montgomery has their own health department. Chester and Delco share one. Erie, I think Lehigh Valley. They aren't covered by this. So they can continue to do 25 people indoors, 150 outdoors, 3, whatever they decide, they can continue to do that. And Allegheny County and Philadelphia have said they are going to continue with their standards within their counties. So the suit was against the state. It wasn't against the county health department. So they can continue to mitigate under this. For everybody in the counties right now that haven't made an announcement, because I've only seen that Philadelphia and Allegheny have. So if you are in a county that doesn't, let me know. There's no ability for the state to enforce right now the capacity requirements, at least the 25 250 number. And I've talked to LCE about this, so I'm not just making up things. Right now, because of that ruling, if you are in a county not governed by a health department, that is not enforceable. 25 people event indoor, 250 outdoor. With that being said, if you are a licensed establishment, the 50% would still hold for an indoor event right now. So I would urge you, if you have a ballroom that can fit 500, you would do 250 in that scenario. You could not go up to 500 because you are still a licensed establishment, and the percentage rules were not ruled unconstitutional. The limitation on crowd size was ruled unconstitutional. So that's why I have what can you do right now. In this gray area, you can move events indoors and you would need to meet that 50% capacity. And what shouldn't you do, like I said, is don't do 100% if you're a licensed establishment. If you are a catering hall and you are not serving alcohol, you're not using a license or food processing license, anything under Department of Ag or LCE, then you would the 50% wouldn't necessarily apply. But if you're in a licensed establishment, you still need to meet at minimum that 50%. And I did talk about not all counties are impacted. I have not had time to look up every single county with the health department. So I urge you, if you are not in Philadelphia or Allegheny and you are in a county with a health department, go to the Google machine and Google it, because if they are making an announcement, they will do so. So Montco does its press conferences today. They might mention something. But as of right now, for the rest of you, if your county hasn't announced it's keeping mitigation in place, that is a gray area. So next steps. We have already heard from the governor very clearly they're going to appeal to the Third Circuit. Don't ask me the timeline. Lawyers couldn't even give you a timeline. They are appealing the decision. That we know for certain. Here are the two things that are keeping me up at night right now. And nothing has happened yet, but they are two things to think about, and please stay in tune with our daily updates if they happen. The 25-250 was ruled unconstitutional. That could mean that tomorrow the governor decides now it's 40 people indoors, 300 outdoors. And that could be a whole nother lawsuit, because he's not saying 25-250, he's just changing the numbers. So that's something I would hope that he wouldn't consider, but it's out there. The other thing that is keeping me up a little bit at night right now is, could there be an argument from the governor and the Secretary of Health? C. Macy is very upset about all this. That the order of 25-250 doesn't apply to licensees and the serving of alcohol. That's another thing that's keeping me up at night right now. None of those have happened, so we're still in that gray area, but those are things that we are cognizant of, that we're going to keep an eye out in terms of what could happen from the governor's office, what could happen in terms of mitigation or changes on that front. I know I'm going to get 150,000 questions, but I think I've answered generally everything I know on the court case, at least as of right now, and I'll try and answer more questions as they come through. Okay, mitigation round 4. So this began the governor's announcement that coincidentally was 1 hour before we moved House 2513 out of committee. I'm sure there's no connection there. Did take effect this Monday, September 21st. Keep in mind that enforcement does not begin until October 5th. So you can decide to self-certify, which I'm going to talk about, but you are not required to self-certify until October 5th. So you can go up to 50% capacity right now without self-certifying. But by October 5th, that would change, and you would need to self-certify by that time. Another announcement that was made last week was the move of the 10 p.m. last call is now 11 p.m. last call, and drinks need to be cleared by midnight. You can still serve food after midnight, but you cannot serve alcohol after an 11 p.m. last call, and the tables need to be cleared at midnight. If it's 11 p.m. and the Cowboys game is on and they do an onside kick, and all of a sudden we've scored back 20 points at the end of the game, and it's 11 p.m. and I think I need 2 shots of Jack Daniels and 3 Miller Lights to carry me through. That can happen as long as I finish it by midnight and then call an Uber. So technically you can order multiple drinks at 11 p.m. and go, and they just have to be finished by midnight. And then you could stay and have wings afterwards if you want. Certification. I hate the certification. And if 2513 passes, the certification would be a moot point. So that's another reason to cheer for 2513. We still have concerns with it. And the thing that's keeping me up, that I have again sent an email, John will vouch, I sent an email to the administration to ask for clarification, is that unsworn falsification to authorities that is in the document that they're telling you as part of you signing the document, and what does that mean and how is it being applied? I haven't gotten an answer yet, which is why I'm saying if you're nervous about signing that certification, you might want to wait until we get an answer to that question, because while so many times, and I believe they're doing this in good faith, the administration is saying that doesn't mean anything, that's not going to increase enforcement, penalties aren't going to increase. I haven't gotten that in writing. It's a lot of, we need to go back to the lawyers and ask. So I would wait if that's something that you're worried about. It's something I'm worried about, quite honestly. Capacity limits. I've gotten a lot of questions on this. I've also sent this over to the administration because this is going to come as a shock. But even though they gave themselves 2 weeks to get this certification up, I don't know if people really thought through how it looks. And I don't think the administration realizes how many of you don't have an actual fire code capacity, and how you can figure out what that 50% number is that they're going to be holding you to, because it could vary. And we're asking them for that information. And a lot of you, even for your certificate of occupancy, don't have an occupancy number on there. And you have to, when you do the certification, put down what your occupancy would be. So that I've again sent that over to them. And I'm hoping to get an answer in terms of that. I will tell you, in terms of your occupancy, as a reminder, it does not include your back of the house employees. So if your capacity is 100 people, it does not include your chefs, your sous chefs, your dishwashers, anybody that's not touching the customer or interacting with the customer. So I can tell you that those are the two things in terms of the certification that we are looking to get clarification on for all of you. On local mitigation, I've mentioned this before. If you have a health department, they can have stricter standards than the state. And Allegheny and Philadelphia are really the only two that have implemented that. For Allegheny County, they have aligned with the state in terms of 50%. The certification, you can go to 50%. As of 11:32 a.m. on September 23rd, they have not changed their 11 p.m., what I like to call the hard stop. So in Allegheny County, they are saying food and beverage service, your restaurant and business has to be empty by 11 p.m. They have not announced that that is changing yet. Again, I'll say it like I do every week, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. They have a press conference. So we might get an announcement on that front today, but as of the last conversation I had with the health department, that's where Allegheny is. Philadelphia is still at 25% indoors. They're not allowing the option to go to 50% no matter what. So that's where, and they are still saying 25 people and 100 indoors, 150 people outdoors for events. And they have the ability to do that at this time. Philadelphia has announced that next week they will be announcing if restaurants can go to 50% indoors. So that will be an announcement that they make next week, which is something that they said they would revisit beginning in October. And so that, and this is kind of what I went over. The only thing I'll add here for Allegheny and Philadelphia is the Philadelphia FAQ document is out. It was in yesterday's daily update. It only took forever, but it does go into some specific questions we've been getting about indoor dining. So that was in yesterday's daily update in terms of the FAQ document that you've all been waiting for. And like I said, next week we will know if Philadelphia is adopting the 50%. And I think with that, I'm allowed to take a sip of coffee and you guys can go over the webinars.
Good, Hope.
All right, great. I will go over the PRLA hosted ones and some other ones that we have up on our website that could be of interest for you. Again, Melissa will be back next week on Wednesday to go over more industry update information, but we will be working with RSI partner client advisors. They're going to be doing a budgeting webinar about how, when, and most importantly, why to budget. We think this is a important webinar for you to consider joining, searching for ways of how to grow sales and controlling costs. That'll be at 2 p.m. next Thursday. Today, there are 3 different webinars coming up. The Ecolab and National Food Safety Month, which is the ServSafe. The National Food Safety is with National Restaurant Association. They both will be doing a cleaning and sanitizing webinars. If you can't attend them, just if you want to get information, you can sign up and they will send you these webinars afterwards. And next week, later this week, Post and Shell will be doing something about vaccinations. And next week, National Food Safety Month will have a breakout sessions, and I think it could be a good webinar to learn from others across the whole US on how they've been successful during COVID. We have been updating our webinars on a regular basis, so please make sure to check out what's coming up from our national affiliates and Ecolab and Nations Restaurant News. In the next webinar, we'll talk about, again, the virtual experiences. Thank you for everybody that's reached out to us. We are trying to get a robust programming together for our students for their remote learning. And we appreciate any support that you can give to us and to these schools. And for training, COVID training, they have added the de-escalation training to their COVID series. It's all free training for your employees. So you can check that out on our website. Last week, we did have a webinar with the national affiliates, so National Restaurant Association and AHLA, both went over their dining commitment and safe stay programs. So if you want to check out that webinar, it is archived. And as always, we are having Serve Safe classes. So please take a look at that and make sure to sign up. They are limited in space due to social distancing, but we are regularly doing classes across the state. And I think that's it. I don't know if you had a chance, Melissa, to look at some of them already.
Nope, I was working on the contact list. So we're going to just go to the beginning and go right through it. But I am up to Jake Wheatley, so we are getting close to the end of the contact list. So first question, what effect would passage of 2513 have for Philadelphia, and how do we begin to rein in Dr. Farley's fight against us? That's a valid question. So if you have your own health department, you do have separate authority to mitigate outside of what 2513 can do. But 2513 will do things that would allow things to change in Philadelphia. So 2513 would bring back bar seating, eliminate the meal requirement, allow events at 50%. Things currently that even if Dr. Farley decided, heck, maybe these restaurants aren't to blame for the spread of COVID, we should increase them, he can't do without this bill passing first. So I hate to say step one, step two. Step one is getting the state guidelines to be in a place that are better and you can survive operating with. And step two, of course, would be going after Dr. Farley and really showing him and displaying to him that restaurants are not the bad guy. I mean, Philadelphia has been the worst in terms of mitigation and burdens upon the industry. But right now, a lot of those are state level things as well. So we have to fix the state first. Bob has questions about a one-page cheat sheet that says status of House Bill 2513, status of Wolf loss and request for the stay, Wolf 50% open, Wolf lost in federal court. They have been in the daily updates, and Bob, I would be lying to you if I said that's something I could turn around for you right now, considering the votes that are happening today. So I'd urge you all to pull the information you need from the daily updates, go to the 2513 landing page we have, and take a look at that in terms of where we need to be. Hold on, I want to look up. Let's see. Okay, what's next? Does House Bill 2513 allow for private events to have walk-up bar service for indoor events again, or would that still be limited to tableside service? It would allow for bar service for indoor events. That is, it would just say that you are allowed to have bar service. So that's where we are in terms of that. So it would bring that back. Sorry, I was looking something up because I knew I had a question coming that I wanted to check a number on. Does 2513 address getting rid of the 11 p.m. no alcohol sales? I did touch upon that, not right now. And I know that's frustrating, but the goal, of course, is to move the governor further on this. And if we lost some Democratic votes, I was worried about how that would impact moving the needle. So we are moving a bill to address 11 p.m. We just didn't want to take the chance of it this week, and we were worried it would hurt the bill. In the House, what is the veto-proof vote? 136 is what we need to be what we call veto-proof in the House. Now, I always say veto-proof, and I know everybody thinks if we do that, the governor won't veto. He's still probably going to veto, but there's that. Then we at least now have that pressure we can put on those people that voted with us, those Democrats that voted with us, that they need to stand firm with us. So that's the number we need to get. The number or at least in the House today. So that's what the goal is. So you need to start making calls to every Democrat on this list I'm sending, and there are a lot of them. Staff shared the Find Your Legislator list. Rob Comro, you're a boss. Thank you, Rob. Will 501c7 catering club license will we be available for the restaurant grant you spoke about in 2615? 2615 is actually your tax code. So it depends on how you're classified in terms of your tax code, your NCIS code. So I'm gonna sneeze, sorry. Allergies. You would need to check that in terms of where, if you're included. But again, 2615 is probably not the grant program we're going to end up with as well. That's to continue the dialogue, move the needle. We're probably going to have a broader grant program at the end of the day. Is there any chance the PLCB will ignore House Bill 2513 and do what the governor wants? They have done it in the past with Act 113. If House Bill 2513 passes, the governor has three choices of what he can do. He can sign it, which he already said he's not going to do, but maybe the votes will move that. He can veto it, or he could just not sign it and just let it become law naturally after 10 days. Those are his options. If he lets it become law naturally, if he signs it, or if he vetoes it and we override a veto, that is the law. And that does supersede the governor's executive order. So the LCB could not make their own rules and regulations that are different than what a bill duly passed by the legislature tells them what to do. And if there's a veto override, orders them to do. I think I did answer about the self-certification. I was told after the first day over 1,000 restaurants have self-certified. That's absolutely your decision. I am not you. I am not your owner, but I can tell you that we still have some unanswered questions that are making me a little nervous, that I would probably personally wait until we get those answers, but it's certainly your decision. If you're comfortable with the self-certification, we are not going to tell you to do it or not to do it. Allegheny County, from what I have read, is still staying at 25 people indoors. I have not heard any different. Again, they are doing their 4 p.m. press conference today, so there might be an announcement today that's different. And then for Erie, I have been, and I apologize, guys, I am operating on little sleep. And now with this bill moving today, I haven't been able to do a deep dive on every county health department. So I would look and see if they put out a press release or a response, or look for news articles on that front. And as we hear of things, we'll certainly let you know. If we are in a county with a health department, is there language PRLA can provide for us to send regarding the 50% capacities? I mean, this is just the conversation that we had with LCE, and that is, it's just essentially, if you are a hotel in a restaurant or you have a licensed facility, we believe the 50% would be the model to follow. Don't know 100, that's what LCE is thinking, but they're still going through the ruling as well. So I don't know if I can provide language other than say best practice to know that you're safe is to do 50% operationally until we get more guidance from the governor's office or various departments. And no, sorry, there's a lot going on. So there's a question of the governor can say that House Bill 2513 doesn't apply to licensees. No, he can't do that. The concern is on the court order of the 25 people indoors, 250 people outdoors, that they could say that applies to a discrete gathering or people tailgating at the Senators game or something. 2513, he can't ignore that if it passes and we override a veto or he signs it. But the court order on the 25250, we don't know if they are going to try and argue that licensees are inherently more dangerous than people that don't drink alcohol. I don't know if they will, but 2513 unilaterally makes this change. When the appeal is filed in the circuit court, could they issue a stay that would impact enforceability of the 25250? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. They might. I don't know. I don't think so, because they already filed the appeal for a stay. But like I said, there could be another way to go after it. And we don't know how quickly the Third Circuit's going to rule either. Right now, there's not a stay in place. So all I can tell you is at 11:45 on September 23rd, there's not a stay in place. Is there anything being done by any group or legislators in Philadelphia and Allegheny counties to push on easing the restaurant and event gathering restrictions? I mean, I think there is a natural push in terms of case counts being lower. Allegheny County has increased its outdoor capacity. Philadelphia has as well. There is talk of increasing indoors. But honestly, and we've talked about this before, we are seeing from Mayor Kenny, we are seeing from County Executive Fitzgerald, and it's really those two counties. They're allowing Commissioner Farley and Dr. Bogan to make these decisions. They're saying, I feel ya, but they're allowing them to make those decisions. And a doctor that's the head of the health department isn't as swayable as maybe a mayor is. And that's really why I think we've been stuck in those two counties longer than I think would be reasonable. I know this is going to be a question that I get. If you order 3 beers at 11 p.m., do they all have to be served at that time? Yes. And we talked about this a little bit last week. Last call at 11 p.m. is the same as last call at 2 a.m. So last call is, if you want a drink, you got to get it now. You got to order it now. I'm going to give it to you now. It cannot be, I want 3 beers and I want to have them served to me every 20 minutes. Last call is, you order what you're going to drink. You have until midnight to drink it. We sign the certification, when does it expire, or is it here to stay? Another question that we don't know the answer to, which is why I don't like the certification process generally. There is no end date to it. Now, obviously, it's tied to COVID, so I presume that it would go away when COVID goes away and we're no longer in a disaster declaration, but your contact information goes on forever. So and for those of you that have completed it, they're asking for a lot of information from you. So I don't think they'll continue to use it for enforcement after the emergency declaration, but I don't know. I don't trust anybody anymore. So. So if you do last call at 11 p.m., you're technically selling drinks still after 11 p.m. I think I explained this, but I'll try it again. 11 p.m. is when you go to every table and say, do you want another drink? This is last call. So yes, if they order it and it takes you till 11:05 to bring them their drink, technically yes, but you can't wait until 11:30 and then say, do you want another drink? 11 p.m. is when they have the decision to get a drink. If House Bill 2513 passes not vetoed, are Allegheny County businesses still at the mercy of the county? We're still checking on this. My understanding is that a health department has its own jurisdiction and authority outside of an emergency declaration. And the House Bill 2513 deals with the state emergency declaration. So there would be, my understanding is Allegheny County and Philadelphia and Montgomery County and Erie and Bucks and Chester could have further mitigation under the authority, the separate authority that their health departments have. I know that's frustrating. Most of them are allowing this, but we also need to keep in mind that right now, the needle's not moving for any of you in terms of bars, the meal requirement, potentially, depending on how this court case goes, the mitigation, unless 2513 passes. And Allegheny County, I will say, has been more than others trying to align more with the state. They're moving towards that end. Can you include square footage of the back of the house, but not the employees? Yes. If your fire, and this is where it gets confusing, if your fire code occupancy is for your entire building, that is the number that they want you to put in the spot. If you don't have a fire code occupancy, that's the question that people have. Do I try and do a calculation just on front of the house, the whole building? Those are the things that we don't know the answer to. But if you have a set occupancy, that is what they want in terms of the certification. Why is the restaurant industry the only industry required to certify? Isn't that discriminatory? Yes. You've all heard me harp on this. It's shenanigans. I'd use a stronger word, but I'm tired. if you have a private event in a dining room space used to calculate your occupancy, does that count against your max occupancy during the event? I don't know if I understand the question. John, do you understand the question? If you have a private, so I guess if you're saying if you have a private dining room that you're doing 25 people, but the entire space, including the dining room, the occupancy is 75 and the dining room is part of that 75, yes, that would count. So you could only do 50 in the space that's not the dining room. I think that's the answer. If I didn't answer that correctly, Tony, let me know. The certification also bullets 25 people indoor and 250 people outdoors for events. If we sign, does this limit during the gray area? No. The court ruled that it is unconstitutional to have that. So if you sign it, they can't enforce it. Now, if you sign it and rules change, yes, but that would be enforcing no matter what. So the fact that as of right now, that is declared unconstitutional, if you sign it, they still can't enforce on you. Let's see. Still no clarity on goggles. I think that is in the FAQ. You are allowed to use goggles in lieu of a face shield, and this is a Philadelphia question. They would like to approve them ahead of time. And the reason they want to approve them ahead of time is they don't want glasses for somebody to wear their glasses and say, these are my goggles. They want them to be actual middle school science class protective goggles. So if you have those would be fine. They would like to approve them because they don't want it to be, like I said, somebody just wears glasses and they call that goggles and they feel that they're compliant. But goggles are permitted in lieu of a face shield. It would be goggles and the mask. If a liquor license covers more than one restaurant, if we have 4+ our banquet facility on ours at our resort, how does the self-certification impact us? Because it is one license, does each restaurant still need to certify, or are they all covered by the one license? You should be able to it's done by location. So even if you have 6 ballrooms plus a restaurant at your resort, you are certifying the resort. So the occupancy that you'd be putting in would be the totality of the occupancy for those spaces that you would have gatherings. But this is also why the certification is terrible, because it provides no clarity whatsoever, but it is done by location. So if you have a resort and you have 6 restaurants operating within it, but they're all operating under your hotel license, you would list the resort, is my understanding of it. But again, I feel bad because the people at DCED have never done this before and they just have no idea. They're just, I feel bad for them. I do. I'm hoping to get more guidance on all of that. That occupancy thing is turning into a real nightmare at this point. Where is Crawford County's health department guidelines found? Does Crawford County have a health department? If they have one, wow. Okay. I'd Google it.
I don't think they
That would be
do.
okay. Yeah. So you would probably know if you have a health department. Most counties don't have health departments. Most fall under the State Department of Ag. In a hotel setting, if we sell alcohol to go, which doesn't require food, can the guests move to the lobby or other public space to imbibe? No, they can't. I mean, they can at 11 p.m. they can order it and go and imbibe for 1 hour, because your hotel in and of itself is licensed. So they would have until midnight to finish it. They can do takeout and take their drinks, cocktails, I guess, and they could take them at 11 and go up to their room. But 11 p.m. is the last time you can sell cocktails. But technically, you could sell a 6-pack of beer to somebody. They could take it up to their room at 1 o'clock in the morning and drink it in their room. But if it's a public facing licensed space, even if it's the lobby, the alcohol needs to be out of their hands by midnight. Yes, you are still allowed to use physical barriers as a means of social distancing, correct. What was the second keep you awake item regarding 25-250 unconstitutional ruling? The first one is that the governor will come up with a new order and say now indoor capacity is 40, outdoor capacity is 275, and drop that on us. And then the second one is if they decide that licensees are different and therefore the 25-250 would still apply to licensees. Again, I haven't heard this, but these are things that I think too much at night, and that are things that could potentially happen. Does the 11 p.m. cutoff for alcohol apply to a hotel front desk selling 6-packs to go? It is not directly connected to restaurant. 11 p.m. doesn't impact anything to go, but naturally cocktails to go, and if you have a WEP, a wine expanded permit, they both end at 11 p.m. anyway. But beer 6-packs, you can sell that from your restaurant or your front desk up until 2 a.m. Those are, as long as they're being taken off premise, they're being taken back to a hotel room, somebody's getting back in their car and driving away from the licensed facility with it. You can still sell beer to go until 2 a.m. like you always can. It just can't be consumed at the licensed premises. The Chester County Health Department has not announced on their webpage or Facebook page a reduced occupancy as of 11:30 a.m. I presume the state's rules on occupancy, et cetera, that the court, yes. So correct. If you have a health department that hasn't decided to make their own occupancy, the state occupancy would apply, and for the 25-250, it would no longer be applicable. For event venues with no liquor license, do the bars still need to be outside for events, or are they able to move inside for the service of alcohol? If it's an event venue and you're not using a license for the alcohol, so you're not using an off-premise catering permit, you're not bringing a caterer in to serve the alcohol, and a bride or groom is providing their own alcohol, then it's not subject to the licensed facility requirements of 50% as of right now. So if there's no licensed facility being used, then, and the 25-250 doesn't apply, then that would be the bar service. The bar service ban only applies to licensed facilities. So if I, at my house here at Melissa Bova's house, decide I'm going to have 50 people come in, I'm going to go and buy a few cases of alcohol from the LCB and just serve it at a bar inside my house, or I'm going to go rent an unlicensed room or pavilion somewhere, that you can have bars. Only the licensed facilities that cannot have bar service. If 2513 is a go, who do we pressure in Allegheny County? All of your representatives, your state rep, with a focus on your Democrat state reps in Allegheny County. And like I said, I'm up to Wheatley in terms, so I'm up to like 197. So we will have that list up on that PRLA.org/2513, or I think HB 2513. That will be up within 5 minutes of this webinar being over. So for all of you that like to call me immediately after the webinar, I'm not going to answer until I get that finished. But definitely, again, same as with the bill in the Senate. Republicans, thank you, please support us. We expect we will have all of them. It's the Democrats we need to get to vote for this. And all we are asking is for them to concur in the Senate amendments, and all the Senate did was bring us back to the guidelines that were in place before July 15th. We're not asking for the sun and the moon and the stars, which we actually used in a letter yesterday to the Senate, and a lot of people liked it. Thank you, Melissa, John, Ben, and the entire team. Thank you, Sue, for your hard work and commitment. I did answer this question. Because the 25-250 was determined to be unconstitutional, you cannot be held to that by the state enforcement agencies. Can you uncertify if you have certified? No. Once they have your information, they have your information. I mean, you can go back to 25%, but you can't call DCED and ask them to delete your contact information. Let's see. Part 2 question. If it passes without having food requirements or things like pool, dart leagues, etc., allowed to come back. 2, with club licenses traditionally getting an extra hour to serve, does that apply to the 11 p.m. rule as well? Thank you for your time and consideration. I don't know where you're located. In Philadelphia, I don't know if it applies to the pool dart leagues. I thought that they were still permitted to a certain extent, but we can look into that. For club licensees, no, under this 11 p.m. order, you wouldn't get until midnight, last call, 1 p.m. cutoff. It is a universal application of 11 p.m. And I would need to check on the pool dart leagues, because I have to check. The state is supposed to be updating its guidance, because there was something where they changed and there were restrictions that were in place under the yellow guidance, and then they updated the document and accidentally deleted yellow and just said these are things that are prohibited and they're actually things that are allowed. So I need to see if that's updated, because I think the pool dart leagues were under that provision, and that they should be allowed if you're not in Philadelphia or Allegheny County, I think, but don't hold me to that. The self-certification document, I know that's been saved. You can go to the self-certification and view it without filling out any of the information. I've done it about 12 times. Thank you, Michael, for the thank you. Oh, I did get the question right. Thank you, Tony. 50% then for weddings, I joined late. That's what we're saying. That's what we're hearing. 50% if you're a hotel, you're a licensed facility. LCE and ag cannot enforce 25-50 right now, but they can enforce the occupancy of 50%. So that's what we're telling you right now. Again, keep an eye out, because my God, I mean, on July 15th at 3:30, the governor said at midnight, I'm changing the rules for all of you. He could do that again at any time. Now, do I think enforcement is going to happen that quickly? No. But I think we need to be prepared if they do make an announcement like that. Ben shared an example of safety goggles. Looking for clarification on the food requirement. I was under the impression that a meal needed to be on their check, but they could stay and continue to drink after their meal. LCB released yesterday seems to say that customers need to leave after their meal is completed. The LCB, I have had this argument with them. I had this argument with them on July 22nd when they released the guidance. They said we're taking it too literally, and I'm like, well, you wrote it too poorly. But you are allowed to have a few drinks after you complete your meal, so you don't need to leave a French fry on a plate at the table to try and prove that you are still eating your meal. Now, can you stay for 1 or 2 or 3 hours afterwards and keep on drinking? They don't want that to happen. I don't know if they can enforce that if it happens, but the meal requirement is not, once I take my last bite of my burger, I can't get another drink afterwards. You are allowed to have your espresso martini after you finish your pasta. Let's see, for Philly, table spacing. Confused about barriers versus 6 feet shoulder to shoulder, social distancing. Can we put barriers between tables and be less than 6 feet? Yes, you can use a barrier to be less than 6 feet. That is permitted in Philadelphia. That's permitted everywhere. But if you're 25% in Philadelphia, I don't know if the barriers help you out so much, but you can use them. Can a restaurant revise their certification if they self-certify and then have to change something like an occupancy number? Good question. I don't know. There's nothing. I mean, you could resubmit a new certification and then just keep a copy of that. So if LCE comes in and pulls up your old certification, you would have a copy to show them. I don't know if, quite frankly, the administration has thought far enough ahead about if somebody puts down a number and they realize it's the wrong number, if they can go back and change. But there is on the self-certification, which has been shared, there is an email address. So email them. They don't bite. They can't bite via email. So send them an email. And if you have to make a change, they'll probably change it for you. I can't do everything, guys. I can do a lot of it, not everything. Thank you, Rob. Thank you to everyone for the efforts on the bill. Thank you, Melissa, for everything so good. It's been a good 24 hours. And I mean, I thought last night I was like so excited. I was like, let's celebrate. And then I got the call today and I'm like, I'm never going to sleep again. If we get this vote today, everybody can come over to my house. I'll make martinis for everybody. Our decision makers are aware that loopholes are having the unintended consequences of driving socializing into unsafe underground operations. We're telling them, they're nodding their heads, and then they're just continuing to do what they do. But Alice and I 100% agree with you. And we've been saying this for a really long time. If one more person in authority tells me college kids are going to a restaurant and sitting at a four top, ordering a burger and having a beer, and that's how they're getting COVID, I call shenanigans on that statement. So it's a conversation. John talks about it all the time. I talk about it all the time. And quite frankly, I think some of the votes we're getting in the House and the Senate are people recognizing that you're literally taking the safe environment that a restaurant provides and driving them to an unsafe environment that has no mitigation or no sanitary items in place. So yes, we are telling them that. I think all along we've been shaking our heads at some of the decisions without any data or logic behind them. Thank you for answering questions. Another info. Thank you guys at PRLA for your hard work. Thank you. We're fighting onward. Thank you for the clarification during these very uncertain times. I feel like I'm more confused about things now, like 6.5 months into this, than I was back in March. Like all of this, I hate gray. I hate gray areas. Are any lawyers looking into the legality of the certification since we are being singled out? Am I missing something? I am not sure. There are probably lawyers that are looking at it. I don't know the answer to that. This is the beauty of me not being a lawyer. Occupancy is based on the whole building. They're asking for your fire code occupancy. So if that's based on the whole building, that's what they want. But again, I sent them a slew of like 6 questions yesterday of what are you looking for? What happens if they don't have a fire code occupancy? What is your basis of the numbers? So we're asking for that clarification. If they need proof, we're happy to give it to them. It's not just students. You're right. It's not just students. It's also football fans and everybody else that is frustrated that they can't have their weddings, and so they're doing it at their homes. But we've been sharing this information with them. They just haven't moved. What is the current formula for events at 50% if there is not an occupancy limit in place? 24 per 1,000 continues to be the standard the administration has been saying. So that's what you would use if you don't have any type of occupancy, is 24 people per 1,000 square feet. But that's why the certification kind of stinks, because if you use that, you're giving them a number where, quite frankly, with social distancing, 24 per 1,000 is probably less than 50% at the end of the day, depending on how your seating's set up. And that's why the occupancy is kind of terrible all around. Thank you for the thank yous. Then John replied to Allison, and I know we're about 10 minutes over, and I'm begging all of you on this call, please start calling your state reps. They are going into session in 51 minutes. They are going to be moving these bills. They're going to be caucusing these bills. They will likely be, House Bill 2513 will likely be considered later this afternoon, depending on session, probably 3:30 to 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish, sometime after that. So if you want to live stream it, you can. But you need to start blitzing. And I thought we had more days to do it, but I can't complain that we just bumped the timeline by 6 days if we get a veto proof vote today in the House, which is why you need to start making calls. Is there any expectation on when to expect yet another new set of guidance? No, Cindy, we're lucky when we get an hour-and-a-half warning before they drop guidance. They're not. It's part of the frustration, I think, from the legislature and us, is the lack of communication that's being used here. Is 24 per 1,000 the max occupancy before the 50% cut Or is that after the 50% cut? I don't know. I don't, the administration is saying that 24 per 1,000 is 50%. That's what that's the number they picked. We have heard from people that if they did 24 per 1,000 and they know their occupancy, that 24 per 1,000 is less than what their 50% occupancy is, which has been a bit of the frustration with all of this. But that's what the administration views to be the 50%. The list of reps, give me 10 minutes. It will be posted on our website. I've been, like I said, I had about 130 done, and then they said they were moving the bill today, and there's 203. I'm up to 197. So that list of reps will be on our website. It will be on social media. So take a look for that. And if you have the time to call 203 people, you get a gold star. Yes, we will post a link for this afternoon session. Ben just did that. Thank you. With the huge increase in numbers in Center County, how am I supposed to feel about the downtown bars opening without more enforcement? This will ultimately hurt me. There is more enforcement, so I don't know if I know the answer to that. I mean, enforcement's happening no matter what with LCE, ag. Center County especially is doing their own enforcement. So Tracy, I don't know if I understand the question. Yes, we will have a link to rewatch this. And I did mention, if you want to make changes to your self-certification, I think your best bet is to contact the email address they provide on the self-certification and request the change. I mean, whether there's PSU football or not, you would still be subject to 50% occupancy and social distancing and barriers no matter what. So whether PSU is happening and your hotels are filled again, if football is happening, well, they wouldn't be filled again because they're not going to open up the stadiums. But generally, the restrictions are in place, whether Penn State is playing, whether the Eagles are playing, whether the Steelers are playing, and the barriers are in place. So I don't know if I still don't know if I understand the question. Will the House bill affect the self-certification? How long should restaurants continue holding off to wait to self-certify? It depends on what happens with the vote today. It depends when the Senate signs the bill and sends it to the governor. You have until October 5th to self-certify. So that's what we know right now with enforcement starting on October 5th. So the timeline is fluid because we still have about 3 steps, and it depends on how long the governor waits to decide to veto or sign or not sign the bill. Think we're done?
I say we are
Talked
done.
really
'Cause
fast today.
you've got a lot of work that you need to do when we get off this call in a short period of time. So I think we're going to call the webinar at this time. Thanks for everything everybody's doing, and please reach out to your reps, and that will be up on the website, you said, in probably like the next 15-20 minutes, right? Or something around there.
I'm going to go right back to it right now. So as long as it takes for Steph to get it up, load it up on the website, and Kendra to get it on social is how long it will take. So I would say 15 minutes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. And please contact your reps today.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Melissa.
Thanks.
Great
Bye.
job.